April 17, 2026. Thousands of people across the United States, across the state of Florida, and across the entire Haitian diaspora sat glued to their screens. They were not watching entertainment. They were not scrolling through social media. They were not checking the news. They were frantically refreshing live stream links. Refreshing again and again. Waiting for one thing. They were waiting to attend the celebration of life for Nancy Metayer Bowen. Nancy was only 38 years old. She was the vice mayor of Coral Springs, Florida. She was a trailblazing Haitian-American leader. She was an environmental scientist. She was a woman that many people believed was destined for the United States Congress one day. Inside church by the Glades in Coral Springs, the sanctuary was packed to capacity. Hundreds of mourners filled every single seat. Elected officials sat alongside community leaders. Friends sat next to colleagues. Family members sat in the front rows, some of them barely able to stand from the weight of their grief. Governor Ron DeSantis ordered flags flown at half-staff across the entire state of Florida in Nancy's honor. Flags were lowered at Coral Springs City Hall, at the police department, at the Broward County Courthouse. It was a clear, powerful, bipartisan acknowledgement of the tremendous loss the state had suffered. But there was one rule that made this funeral service different from almost any other high-profile funeral in recent memory. The family issued a strict, total, non-negotiable ban on all news cameras inside the sanctuary. No media crews were allowed. No reporters with microphones. No television cameras rolling in the aisles. No photographers. No news vans broadcasting from inside the church. They wanted this moment to remain sacred. Personal. Protected from the media circus that had already surrounded Nancy's death. Today, we are going to respectfully walk through exactly what the public was able to see through the official live stream. The prayers that opened the service. The powerful songs sung in Haitian Creole that brought people to tears. The eulogies delivered by colleagues who had worked beside Nancy for years. The moments that moved thousands of people to cry while watching from their own living rooms. And we are going to talk honestly about the heavy reason why that camera ban felt so necessary to the family. This is a story of celebration. And it is a story of heartbreak. I ask you to stay with me through the entire video. If you were one of the thousands of people who fought to get into that live stream, and many people reported having to try several different links before finding one that worked, here is exactly what you experienced. The service opened with deep, heartfelt prayer. The pastor stood at the pulpit. His voice filled the entire sanctuary as he prayed for strength for Nancy's family. He prayed for peace for her soul. He prayed for comfort for a community that was still in shock. He prayed for understanding even when understanding felt impossible. Then came the music. Beautiful, powerful, soul-stirring songs were sung in Haitian Creole. These were not just background songs. These were not just performances. These were tributes that connected directly to Nancy's heritage. To her parents. To the grandparents who had come before her. To the community she had represented her entire life. Anyone watching the live stream could feel every single note carrying the weight of love and loss. The singers did not hold back. Their voices rose and fell with emotion. Some of them cried while they sang. Some of them had to stop and start again. The congregation sat in complete silence, listening, honoring, grieving together. Speaker after speaker approached the pulpit. Commissioner Joshua Simmons, one of Nancy's closest colleagues on the Coral Springs City Commission, stood up. He paused for a long moment before he spoke. He was visibly emotional. He took a deep breath. He looked out at the crowd. He spoke about Nancy's incredible work ethic. He talked about how she never missed a single meeting in all her years on the commission. Not one. He talked about how she answered emails late at night when everyone else had gone to sleep. He talked about how she showed up for people even when no one was watching. He talked about how she remembered everyone's name, everyone's story, everyone's concerns. He said that Nancy was not just a colleague. She was a friend. She was a sister in service. And he did not know how the commission was going to move forward without her. A childhood friend who had known Nancy since Coral Springs Charter School spoke next. She talked about the young girl with big dreams. The girl who helped her classmates with their homework even when she had her own work to do. The girl who organized the other kids. The girl that everyone in their class knew was going to do something important someday. She said that even back then, Nancy talked about changing the world. Even back then, Nancy was not satisfied with things the way they were. She wanted to make things better. She wanted to help people. And she never stopped wanting that. A representative from Florida A&M University, Nancy's beloved alma mater, stood up to speak. He talked about Nancy as a student. He talked about how she had stayed connected to the university long after graduation. How she had mentored younger students. How she had come back to speak to classes. How she had donated her time and her energy to help the next generation of FAMU students find their own paths. He announced that the university was establishing a scholarship in Nancy's name. A scholarship for young women studying environmental science. A scholarship that would carry her legacy forward for decades to come. A leader from the Haitian-American community stood up. He spoke in both English and Creole. He talked about what Nancy's election meant to the community. He said that when Nancy won her seat on the city commission in 2020, Haitian Americans across South Florida celebrated in the streets. They celebrated because they finally saw themselves represented. They celebrated because their daughter had broken through a barrier that had stood for too long. He said that Nancy never forgot where she came from. She never acted like she was better than anyone else. She showed up to community events. She answered questions. She listened. She learned. She led. Resolutions were read from the United States Senate. A senator had submitted a formal resolution honoring Nancy's life and service. The resolution was entered into the congressional record. Resolutions were read from the state of Louisiana, where Nancy had also worked and made an impact. Resolutions were read from Broward County, from Coral Springs, from numerous community organizations across South Florida. The service ran for nearly 2 hours. Between 1,000 and 2,000 people filled the sanctuary in person. Many more stood along the walls because there were no seats left. Others gathered outside the church, watching on screens that had been set up in the lobby. Over 1,400 people watched the live stream at its peak, and many more watched the recording in the days that followed. For those few hours, the focus was exactly where the family wanted it to be. On celebrating how Nancy lived. On honoring what she accomplished. On remembering the woman behind the title. Not just on how she died. But everyone in that church and everyone watching online knew there was a darker story underneath the celebration. Everyone knew that 17 days earlier, something terrible had happened. Everyone knew that Nancy should have been the one standing at that pulpit one day, accepting honors, giving speeches, continuing her work. Instead, her family was sitting in the front row. Instead, her colleagues were speaking about her in the past tense. Instead, thousands of people were watching a funeral instead of a campaign rally. That weight was present in every moment of the service. Let me tell you who Nancy Metayer Bowen truly was. Let me tell you the full story of her life, her work, and her legacy. Nancy was born in September 1987. She grew up right here in Coral Springs, Florida. Her parents were Haitian immigrants who had come to the United States looking for better opportunities for their children. They worked hard. They sacrificed. They taught Nancy the value of education, the importance of community, and the responsibility that comes with success. Nancy attended Coral Springs Charter School. Even as a teenager, people noticed something special about her. She was not just smart. She was driven. She was not just friendly. She was intentional. She made plans. She set goals. She worked toward them every single day. After high school, Nancy earned her Bachelor of Science degree from Florida A&M University, FAMU. She was incredibly proud of that foundation. She often credited FAMU with shaping her commitment to public service. She talked about her professors who pushed her to think bigger. She talked about her classmates who challenged her to be better. But Nancy did not stop at a bachelor's degree. She went on to earn a Master of Health Science from Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins is one of the most respected institutions in the entire world for public health and science. Getting into Johns Hopkins is difficult. Graduating from Johns Hopkins is even more difficult. Nancy did both. She was not someone who took the easy path. She was not someone who looked for shortcuts. She put in the work. She earned every single credential. She built a foundation of knowledge that would serve her throughout her entire career. Professionally, Nancy was an environmental scientist. But she was not the kind of scientist who stays in a laboratory all day. She was not the kind of scientist who publishes papers that only other scientists read. Nancy was the kind of scientist who went directly into communities. She sat with families at their kitchen tables. She listened to their concerns. She asked them what they needed. She asked them what kept them up at night. She fought for climate justice. Let me explain exactly what that means. Climate justice is the idea that the people who are least responsible for climate change are often the ones who suffer the most from its effects. Low-income neighborhoods, communities of color, immigrant communities. These are the areas that are hit first and worst by flooding, by pollution, by extreme heat. Nancy understood this. She dedicated her career to protecting these communities. She worked on community resilience programs after hurricanes tore through Florida. She helped families recover their homes. She helped cities rebuild smarter and stronger so that the next hurricane would not cause the same level of destruction. She traveled to Haiti to work directly with leaders in Cap Haitian. She helped address sanitation crises. She worked on clogged canals that were causing flooding in residential areas. She worked on trash collection problems that were creating health hazards. She did not just talk about helping from a distance. She got on a plane. She went there. She got her hands dirty. She served as climate justice manager for organizations pushing for real clean energy policies. She sat on the board of Friends of the Earth, a major environmental advocacy organization with global reach. She was a legal and outreach intern with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is known as NOAA. She was inducted into the CLEO Institute, which trains climate leaders and advocates. She received the United Nations Clean Water Advocacy Award for her work on water access and sanitation. She was named to the top 20 under 40 list by the Haitian-American Chamber of Commerce. Nancy did not just have a job. She had a calling. She believed that environmental protection was not separate from social justice. She believed that you could not help the planet without helping the people who live on it. She believed that the communities most affected by environmental problems should have a seat at the table when solutions were being designed. And she lived those beliefs every single day. Not just when it was easy. Not just when it was convenient. Every single day. In 2020, Nancy made history. She became the first black woman and the first Haitian-American ever elected to the Coral Springs City Commission. Let me put that in perspective. Coral Springs is a city of more than 130,000 people. It is a large, diverse, thriving community in South Florida. And in all the years since the city was founded, no black woman had ever been elected to its governing body. No Haitian American had ever broken that barrier. Until Nancy. The night she won, the Haitian American community across South Florida celebrated like it was their own victory. Because it was. They had supported her. They had knocked on doors for her. They had donated to her campaign. They had believed in her. And she had delivered. Nancy did not treat her election as the end of the fight. She treated it as the beginning. She got to work immediately. She learned the budget. She studied the issues. She showed up to every single meeting. She answered every single email. She returned every single phone call. In 2024, Nancy was re-elected with strong support from across the city. Democrats and Republicans both voted for her. Business owners and community organizers both supported her. She had built a reputation as someone who worked across the aisle, who found common ground, who got things done. After her re-election, her colleagues on the city commission chose her to serve as vice mayor. That was not a title she gave herself. That was a title her peers gave her because they trusted her. Because they respected her. Because they knew she would lead with integrity. Nancy also served as vice chair of Haitian outreach for the Florida Democratic Party. She worked on voter outreach for major presidential campaigns. She chaired the Coral Springs Charter School Board, giving back to the same school she had attended as a child. Many people close to her believed she was preparing to run for Congress in the very near future. She had the resume. She had the vision. She had the work ethic. She had the genuine, authentic care for people that voters can spot from a mile away. She was not running for office for the title. She was not running for office for the power. She was running for office because she believed she could make a difference. And she was right. People who worked with Nancy described her as love incarnate. That is a direct quote from someone who sat beside her on the city commission for years. They said she led with both courage and compassion. She could be strong when she needed to be strong. She could fight for what she believed in. She could stand up to powerful interests. But she never fought with cruelty. She never attacked personally. She never forgot that the people on the other side of the table were human beings too. She listened first. That was one of her superpowers. Before she responded to a criticism, she listened. Before she offered a solution, she asked questions. Before she made a decision, she gathered all the facts. A community leader who worked with Nancy on environmental issues said that Nancy was the most prepared person in every single room. She always did her homework. She always read the reports. She always came with questions written down. She never just showed up and hoped for the best. A young Haitian-American woman who was mentored by Nancy said that Nancy changed her life. She said that Nancy saw potential in her that she did not even see in herself. She said that Nancy pushed her to apply for jobs she did not think she was qualified for. She said that Nancy wrote letters of recommendation for her. She said that Nancy checked in on her. She said that Nancy believed in her. That is who Nancy was. Not just a politician. Not just a scientist. A mentor. A friend. A believer in people. Even in her personal life, Nancy carried heavy weight with grace. She had lost her brother years earlier. The details of his passing are private, but those close to Nancy said it devastated her. She loved her brother deeply. His loss left a hole in her heart. But Nancy did not let that hole stop her. She continued serving. She continued working. She continued showing up. She continued fighting for her community. She channeled her grief into action. She turned her pain into purpose. She honored her brother's memory by living a life of meaning and service. That kind of quiet resilience is rare. It is easy to serve when everything is going well. It is easy to show up when you feel strong. But Nancy showed up even on the days she did not feel strong. She served even when she was hurting. She gave even when she felt empty. That is not something you can learn from a book. That is not something you can fake. That comes from deep character. That comes from genuine love for others. Nancy had both. Even after her passing, Nancy's legacy continues. A GoFundMe campaign was established to support her family, her parents, her loved ones, the people who are left behind trying to make sense of this senseless loss. That campaign has raised tens of thousands of dollars. Endowments and memorial funds are being created in Nancy's name. The Nancy Metayer Endowment will support environmental science education. It will fund scholarships for young women who want to follow in Nancy's footsteps. It will support community resilience programs that help vulnerable neighborhoods prepare for climate change. Her family has announced that they want to continue her work. They want to make sure that what Nancy started does not end with her death. They want to carry her mission forward. Florida A&M University is establishing a scholarship in her name. The CLEO Institute is naming a fellowship after her. Friends of the Earth is creating an award for emerging climate justice leaders called the Nancy Metayer Bowen Award. Her light was taken far, far too soon. She should be here. She should be the one accepting these honors. She should be the one mentoring the next generation. She should be the one running for Congress. But even though she is gone, the work she started is still moving forward. The people she trained are still working. The people she inspired are still fighting. The policies she championed are still being debated and passed and implemented. That is what a legacy looks like. It is not just about what you do while you are alive. It is about what continues after you are gone. As beautiful and powerful as the celebration of life was, an undeniable shadow hung over every prayer, every song, and every eulogy that was delivered inside that sanctuary. Because just 17 days earlier, on April 1st, 2026, Nancy Metayer Bowen did not show up for a scheduled Coral Springs City Commission meeting. For a woman who was known for perfect attendance, this was alarming. For a woman who answered emails at midnight and returned phone calls on weekends, this was terrifying. Her colleagues called her phone. Every call went straight to voicemail. They sent text messages. Every text went unread. They reached out to her staff. No one had heard from her. They contacted her friends. No one had spoken to her. The people who knew Nancy best immediately knew something was wrong. This was not like her. This was not normal. This was not a missed call or a forgotten meeting. This was a complete and total radio silence from a woman who was never silent. They contacted the Coral Springs Police Department and requested a welfare check at Nancy's home on Northwest 127th Avenue. When officers arrived, the house looked quiet from the outside. The lawn was maintained. The cars were in the driveway. Nothing appeared obviously out of place. But when they knocked on the front door, there was no answer. When they called out, there was only silence. When they walked around the house and looked through windows, they could not see anyone moving inside. After multiple failed attempts to make contact, the situation was escalated. A SWAT team was called in. They made the difficult decision to force entry into the home. They breached the door. They began clearing the house room by room. What they found upstairs in the master bedroom was absolutely devastating. Nancy Metayer Bowen was deceased. Her body had been wrapped in blankets and a comforter and multiple layers of black garbage bags. She had been concealed, hidden, covered as if someone did not want her to be found. The medical examiner later determined that Nancy had been shot 3 times with a shotgun. 3 times. In her own home. In the master bedroom. In the place where she should have been safest. The man charged with her murder is her husband of 3 years. His name is Stephen Bowen. He is 40 years old. According to the arrest affidavit, Stephen Bowen faces charges of first-degree premeditated murder and tampering with physical evidence. Let me repeat that. First-degree premeditated murder. That means prosecutors believe he planned to kill her. That means prosecutors believe it was not an accident. That means prosecutors believe he made a decision to end her life. This is why the family banned cameras from inside the church. This is why they said no to every news outlet that asked for access. This is why they insisted on keeping the service sacred and private. They did not want Nancy's final farewell to be turned into another media spectacle. They did not want camera crews zooming in on her mother's face while she cried. They did not want reporters analyzing every tear and every pause. They did not want Nancy's funeral to become entertainment for strangers. They wanted to protect her dignity. They wanted to give her family space to grieve without the whole world watching. They wanted the community to be able to mourn the woman who had lived such a powerful life, not just the victim of a horrific crime. And knowing what we now know about the brutality of her death, that camera ban was not just understandable. It was necessary. It was the right decision. It was an act of love from a family that had already lost too much. We are going to cover the full details of the investigation in video 2. But let me give you a preview of what we know so far. According to the arrest affidavit, Stephen Bowen allegedly told a family member that he could not take it anymore. Those exact words. I could not take it anymore. Investigators believe that Stephen Bowen used a pillow as a makeshift silencer to muffle the sound of the shotgun blasts. That is not something you do in the heat of the moment. That is not something you do without planning. That is something you do when you have thought about what you are about to do. After the shooting, Stephen Bowen allegedly wrapped Nancy's body in blankets, a comforter, and multiple layers of black garbage bags. He tried to conceal what he had done. He tried to hide her. The next morning, Stephen Bowen reportedly tried to leave the area. He was arrested before he could get far. He has been in custody since his arrest. The Coral Springs Police Department issued a public statement saying that there was no prior history of domestic violence calls to the home. Number 911 calls. No reports. No warnings. Nothing that would have alerted anyone to what was coming. That is one of the most troubling aspects of this case. How could this happen with no warning signs? How could a man with no documented history of violence do something this brutal? How could Nancy have known? How could anyone have known? These are questions we will explore in depth in video 2. In video 2, we are going to go deep into the arrest affidavit. We are going to read the actual language from the police report. We are going to break down every piece of evidence that prosecutors have released. We will cover the makeshift pillow silencer that investigators say Stephen Bowen used to muffle the sound of the shotgun blasts. We will explain how a silencer works and why using a pillow suggests premeditation. We will break down the exact timeline of what happened inside that house on April 1st. What time did the shooting occur? What did Stephen Bowen do in the hours immediately after? When did he try to leave? When was he arrested? We will examine Stephen Bowen's movements after the murder, including his attempt to flee the area. Where did he try to go? Did he have help? Did he have a plan? We will discuss his alleged confession to a family member, where he reportedly said the words "I could not take it anymore." What did he mean by that? Was he talking about the marriage? Was he talking about something else? Did he express any remorse? We will also look at the police department's public statement that there was no prior history of domestic violence calls to that residence. Number 911 calls. No reports. Nothing that would have warned anyone about what was coming. We will ask the hard questions about what that means and whether more could have been done. We will examine the court proceedings so far. Has Stephen Bowen entered a plea? What is his defense? When is the trial expected to begin? And we will look at how the community has responded. The vigils. The memorials. The calls for change. The determination to make sure Nancy's death is not forgotten. Video 2 is coming very soon. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel and you have turned on your notifications so you do not miss it. Nancy Metayer Bowen dedicated her entire adult life to public service, to justice, to lifting up the people around her. She was a daughter of Haitian immigrants who grew up to become vice mayor of a major Florida city. She was an environmental scientist who fought for the communities that needed help the most. She was a mentor who saw potential in young people and helped them reach it. She was a friend who showed up when she was needed. Her story is beautiful. And it is heartbreaking. And it is a painful reminder that light can be extinguished in an instant. Even in the middle of unstoppable momentum. Even when the future looks so bright. Even when there is so much work left to do. To Nancy's parents, who lost their daughter far too soon. To her family, who are left behind trying to make sense of this senseless loss. To her colleagues on the Coral Springs City Commission, who have to show up to work every day in a room where Nancy should be sitting. To the Haitian-American community across South Florida and beyond, who lost one of their brightest stars. We offer our deepest condolences. Our most sincere respect. And our commitment to telling Nancy's story the right way. If this video reached you, if it moved you in any way, please leave a respectful comment below. What touched you most about Nancy's story? Was it her environmental work? Was it her political achievements? Was it the way people described her as love incarnate? Was it the heartbreaking contrast between the beautiful funeral and the dark circumstances of her death? Do you think the family made the right decision by banning cameras from the sanctuary? Should more families have the right to keep their loved ones' funerals private, even when the death is high profile? Please share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Nancy's family may read these comments one day. Let them know that her story reached people. Let them know that her work mattered. Let them know that she will not be forgotten. Please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications. Video 2 is coming very soon. The full breakdown of the arrest affidavit. The makeshift pillow silencer. The confession. The timeline. The questions that still need answers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for honoring Nancy Metayer Bowen's memory. Rest in peace, Vice Mayor Nancy Metayer Bowen. Your work, your light, your legacy, none of it will be forgotten.